President Garvey, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
An undergraduate degree, what's the importance of that?
You know, it's become more important as time has gone by. In the Middle Ages, people matured at 13 or 14 years old. The world was so much less complicated that there wasn't that much that you needed to learn in order to function in it. And nowadays, the kinds of work that people do in advanced Western societies like ours is so complex that you need an undergraduate degree just to begin to cope with the world around you. So one of the important things about an undergraduate degree is just acquiring the level of sophistication and competence to function at the level that our graduates will function at. That's true of every university. At a Catholic university, I think an undergraduate degree serves additional purposes. We, unlike our counterparts in Western Europe, for example, are residential campuses. Our students come here to live, and they live their lives here. It's one that my wife and I share because we live on the same space. We frequently eat in the same places, go to the same football games and church. And so it's a life that people live here for 4 years, and we need to concern ourselves with their growth in virtue as well as intellect while they're here.
So you think Catholic education is important?
I think it's the most important thing. That's why I do it.
Why? Why?
Why is it the most important thing? Well, it may not be the most important thing for everybody, but for people who get a college education or an advanced degree, I think Catholic education is something that's uniquely important because of the concern that we have for the growth and cultivation of the character of our students as well as their growth in wisdom while they're here. It's, you know, nowadays if you read the catalogs or talk to professors at other kinds of colleges, public schools, or even many private schools, you'll find them saying that it's none of their affair what kind of lives students live outside of the classroom as long as they stay on the right side of the law and observe the usual proprieties. Their lives are their own to live. The important thing is that they amass the facts that they're being taught in class and become competent biologists. At Catholic University, it matters a lot to us what kind of people our students become. That's every bit as important as they're acquiring the intellectual competences that we teach in class.
I once said to someone that if a student was here and never went to Mass, never went into one of the houses of worship here, just the atmosphere alone would sink in, huh?
There would nevertheless be changed people. And it isn't just the atmosphere. And we do have any number of students who never go to Mass here. It isn't just Catholics who attend the school. There was a story making the rounds on the Washington Post and on NPR last year about the increasing number of Muslim students who came to Catholic University. And what they said about the university was, we particularly value this place. We feel comfortable at this university because people take their faith seriously, and in ways that we do. You know, we cover our heads. Nuns here cover their heads. We fast during Ramadan. They fast during Lent. We pray daily. Many of them go to Mass daily. So it's an atmosphere, a place, a commitment that people can live out in different ways, but it changes them all.
So a youngster who's graduated from high school wants to go to a Catholic university. So he's got several choices. Fordham, Notre Dame, Catholic University. Why come here?
Oh, I think this would be the first choice for any student who knew what he was doing or she was doing, for a number of reasons. First of all, I think that the Catholic intellectual life at this place is actually something that you don't find elsewhere in America. It's partly because we began as a graduate institution and we're concerned above all with the intellectual life and what went on in the classrooms. It was a way for the Catholic Church to do its thinking in a university context. And our undergraduate students benefit from that large competence that we have in graduate education. We're also located in Washington, D.C., and some of the places that you mentioned are in very small towns. I won't say which. There's that. The other difference that you'll notice between Notre Dame and Fordham on the one hand and Catholic University on the other hand is that we have Division III athletics, for example, and people at some other Catholic schools go to watch sports. Our students play them here. They're more.
Let me ask this. Long time ago, when you were a youngster, you had your eye on the seminary. Mm-hmm. You went to Harvard and enrolled in the Harvard Divinity School. And then you
took another path?
You took another path, but here we sit, and you're president of the Catholic University of America. Do you think you got the best of all possible worlds?
You know, it's a funny thing about growing up. I have noticed this and commented on it to our own children and to our students here. When you get to my point in your life and you turn around and look back, the path all seems to lead to where you're going. When you're at the front end of it, you have no idea where it's going. You can't imagine how you'd end up being this. No, I went to a seminary when I was a much younger kid. In those days, they had what were called minor seminaries for boys who were in high school, and it didn't take either of us, me or the seminary, very long to figure that wasn't my calling in life. I went to Harvard Divinity School on bad advice about graduate school. I had a fellowship from the Danforth Foundation to pay for a PhD, and I think my college just didn't give me very good advice about where I ought to be doing my studies. So I was floundering in a PhD program, partly because my own college education had been so all over the map. I was in a program that waived major requirements, so I studied French and philosophy and music and English and government and literature and so on. But when I got to graduate school, people who go to get PhDs need to know their path, and I didn't. So I decided to go to law school because I knew at law school they'd say, here, read this book and we'll give you a test, and I could do that. Also, I decided when I was in about 4th grade that I wanted to go to law school because my dad was a lawyer. So for not very good reasons, I went to law school.
We're heading toward my end of the program, because I want to get the students involved, and they have worked up some questions for you. Yeah, they have. Yes, a couple of them are hard. Last week we gathered together. They came up with their own questions. They solicited questions from fellow undergraduate students. We put them all together, and this will be the outpouring of those questions. But before I turn it over to them, lawyer, teacher, president of the university, father, husband, I'm sure writer along the way. What is the single most important lesson you've learned in your life so far that you use on a day-to-day basis to kind of navigate through life? Single most important lesson.
That's a wonderful question. My wife and I were giving a talk last night about marriage as a vocation, and we, in preparing for it the night before, we were both saying that the single most important thing we thought we had done, both of us came to the same conclusion, was raising our children. Along the way of doing that, we've learned so many lessons. For my own part, the lesson of the last maybe 30 years that has been most important to me is a lesson in humility. I think that I'm a better leader and president and teacher nowadays because I have learned that there are a lot of different ways of growing up and doing things. People can take a lot of wrong turns and get back on the right path. People can undertake to raise their children in many different ways and be successful at it. And I've learned about my own shortcomings, so it's made me more patient and a little bit more open to learning from everybody else around me, and that's what universities are for.
One of the things I learned on the way up is somebody defined humility as teachability and the willingness to kneel.
That's a nice way of putting it.
You've learned that?
Mm-hmm.
It's up to the class.
All right.
Raise your hand and let's give it a go. Who's up? Who's up? Tim, you want to start us off?
Hi, Tim.
Let's get the microphone over so we can not only see you, but hear you as well.
Timothy, I'm a senior here at your lovely university. And I'm
Congratulations.
curious. Thank you. Let me knock on some wood real quick. Yeah, 2 weeks left. But my first question is, what is your interaction with the Pope on a personal basis? And if so, how often does that occur? And what do you discuss with him when you meet with him?
My interaction with the Pope has been limited to about 30 seconds. I got to shake his hand on my birthday of last year. I have an interaction with the Vatican, which is a different thing from the Pope. It's a very large bureaucracy, something like the government of the United States, only in a much smaller area. Because we're a pontifical university, we give ecclesiastical degrees in philosophy and theology and canon law. We are governed in some ways by the Congregation for Catholic Education. Imagine the National Labor Relations Board or the Department of Commerce. Well, within the Vatican, there are congregations that do the work of government departments in the United States. And the Congregation for Catholic Education is headed by a Polish cardinal, and he has a staff, and they supervise or oversee the affairs of Catholic colleges and universities, elementary and secondary schools, and seminaries. So a couple times a year I'll report to the congregation. Appointments to our faculties in these areas, and also my own appointment needs to be approved by the congregation. My brothers and sisters were mightily impressed and surprised that I got Vatican approval for my job.
Who's up next? Chris?
Chris Barcelona.
Hi, Chris.
Senior as well. My question is, what is your dream for the Catholic University, or your mission?
It's a big one. My dream is for it to be the greatest Catholic university in the world. I have gotten to know a lot of other Catholic universities in other parts of the world. In the course of the last couple of years, I've begun to develop friendships with presidents of some of them. And one of the lessons that I've learned is how different American Catholic universities are from Catholic universities elsewhere. First of all, in their wealth. Second, for the most part, although not always, in their own sense of Catholic identity and the role that Catholicism plays in the mission of the university. And third, in the many ways that American universities are different from universities in other parts of the world. So I think the possibility of being great in this way is maybe not unique to American universities, but it's something you can achieve here. I think, too, that we have opportunities being in the nation's capital and being so close to things like the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops and so well integrated with the American Church that being great in the Catholic way is something that's more easily within our grasp. I think that achieving this is going to take resources that are far greater than any we've ever put together. So I think that, crude as it sounds, money has a lot to do with our success as a university, and so raising money is a really important part of my job. Then again, finally, I think that we still have work to do in our handling of undergraduate education. I mentioned that we began as a graduate school, and I think we do graduate education well, although we need money for that as well. But I think that we haven't. There's a saying about the University of Chicago, which also began as a kind of graduate school, or is famous as a graduate school, that it's the university where fun goes to die. And Johns Hopkins is a little bit the same way. And I worry that we suffer from a little bit of that. So we've been trying to focus, I've been trying to focus more of our attention on undergraduate education.
Who's up? Go ahead.
Juliet Lacoma, senior media studies major here. What 2 items are always on your desk?
You mean besides my glasses and my pen? There are 2 items that are always on my desk, actually. There are 2 pads of paper, 2 legal pads. One is a list of telephone calls, and one is a list of projects. One of the lessons that I have learned in the last, 10 years or so of being an administrator is that if I were to answer all my phone calls and answer all my emails and answer all my letters and attend all the meetings that had been called, it would fill up my entire day and I would not be in charge of my agenda. And so I think that would be a bad thing for the university. I think that the things I need to be spending time on are the things that I think are most important, and other things will have to break into my consciousness. So one of the lists on my desk is a list of the 6 things that I'm doing right now, and those are the things that I focus on every day. The list of telephone calls is a list of calls that I need to make that day, because if I'm going to operate this way, then I have to have a system by which people can reach me. So for me, it's the telephone. If somebody calls, I call them back. But emails, I pile up, or I may get to them, I may not. Letters, my secretary will come in once a day and we'll go through letters, dictate answers and so on, and she'll take care of those. But I try to focus my attention on those 2 things.
Who's up next? Caitlin.
Caitlin.
Hi, I'm Caitlin Walters. I'm a senior also. I was just wondering if there were any physical plans for the expansion of the university that we don't really know about yet.
I don't know whether there are physical plans that you don't know about, but I can tell you some of the physical plans for the university. As you know, we have been doing the Board of Trustees approved a master plan that we spent about 1.5 years preparing. The Zoning Commission in the District of Columbia has before it, a strategic plan. The Zoning Commission has before it a master plan that we have prepared over the last 1.5 years with a firm called A.R. St. Gross, an architectural firm that does campus planning. We have to file every 10 years with the district a plan for how many people are going to live here, what's our use going to be for electricity and other utilities, sewer use, what's the traffic in and out going to be, and so on, what kind of resources are we going to consume. We took this as an occasion to think about our master plan, about our strategic plan, how would the shape of the campus change? Much of the things that I want to do first are things that have come to my attention because my wife and I live here and we spend a lot of time with students and walking around the campus. For example, we go to the Priz for 1 or 2 meals a week, and we walk across a parking lot that occupies an acre on sloped asphalt with 200 cars in the middle of the campus. The most beautiful place on the campus is full of chrome and asphalt. That has to change. So what we're going to do is build a parking lot across the street in that woods over on Harewood, and build an entrance off North Capitol Street so that people can come into the university off North Capitol Street and drive in by the music school, and take the parking lot out and put in grass and fountains and places to play and places to hang out. Eventually, we're going to get rid of all of the streets and sidewalks inside the campus. There will be one road that comes in by Pangbourne, comes in front of McMahon, and goes out in front of the music school. And there'll be a branch that goes over to the Basilica, and that'll be it. The rest will be wide sidewalks, with brick and concrete, but attractive in their own way for people to walk around, to eliminate all of the vehicular pedestrian conflicts. I said earlier that we had a problem with doing undergraduate education. Well, the proof of it is that all of these things privilege the people in the cars who don't live here over the pedestrians who do. The people who live here are undergraduates. They, sleep in the dorms, eat in the Priz, take their classes here, and walk around. And the people in the cars are faculty and staff who live in Rockville and drive in, park their car right in the middle of campus, and go away. So we need to change that.
Grace, do you want to jump in?
Oh, sure. Grace Blais.
Hi, Grace.
Media Studies major. Do you have plans to improve okay. So we know you moved from Boston. What
Yes.
are some of the adjustments and responsibilities?
The biggest adjustment is I can't get any news of Red Sox games or Patriots games or Celtics games. The bright side of that is they've all made it very easy for me to leave and forget about them. The Sox finished last year so badly and started this year so badly. The Patriots collapsed in a heap with the Giants again, and so they made it easy. I still can't. There's no warm spot in my heart for the Red Sox or for the Redskins or the Nationals. I'm sorry, I just can't. And the Capitals, I can't.
The
get
Bruins are playing tonight.
I don't. Hockey wasn't invented where I grew up, so I don't know what to make of that.
Quinlan?
I'm Rosalie Garvey.
Hi, Quinlan. How you doing?
I was wondering, who was your role model growing up?
Well, there were 3 or 4. My grandfather, who lived next door to me, has always been one of my heroes in life, and we are completely different, and our lives have been, in many ways, completely different. He was a man who grew up in a little town in western Pennsylvania. His dad was a telegraph operator. He went to high school. He said he graduated second of all the boys in his high school. There were only 2 boys in his high school. And he ran a steel mill in the end when he grew up. But he lived next door to us, and he was the kindest man I have ever known. Nobody who ever met my grandfather didn't think, gosh, you just feel when you're around Grandpa that you are the most interesting and funniest and cleverest person in the world. He just was. He was married to my grandmother for 70 years. They lived next door to us, and the chair I have in my office that I sit in when people come to see me was the chair from Grandma and Grandpa's library. And when I would go in to visit Grandma and Grandpa, I would sit in that chair. So I still have that. So he was one of my heroes when I was growing up. My father was another. He was a small town lawyer, and I think he's a big part of the reason I became a lawyer. Other people I've known whom I really admired were Justice White on the Supreme Court was somebody I admired his life, and I nearly always agreed with him when he was on the Supreme Court. Rex Lee was the Solicitor General of the United States for whom I worked, and later the president of Brigham Young University. And he was a really wonderful man, died very young, but he was somebody that I looked up to.
Andrea?
Hi, Andrea Cuso.
Hi, Andrea.
I was curious if you could change one thing about the university overnight, I guess aside from the buildings on campus, what would it be and why?
Is there a dollar limit on this?
For the sake, say no.
You know, when I came, I tend to think in terms of hundreds of millions of dollars. So my first thought was, if I had $100 million, when I came, my judgment was that I would spend it all on faculty salaries and staff salaries and improve that part of the picture. About a year ago, Jeannie and I were walking around, and I was rethinking this question, and I said, you know, if I had $100 million, I would spend it all on student life kinds of things. I would make more places to eat around the campus. I would take the bookstore out and put it in a Barnes & Noble across Michigan Avenue and reclaim that space and put a place where you could buy beer if you were 21. I would build a much bigger non-varsity recreation space on, you know, between the Dufour Center and Taylor Street. I would just put a lot more amenities for that had to do with student life.
Jessica?
Hi.
Hi,
I'm
Jessica.
I'm a junior media studies major. What surprises you most about the Catholic University?
The thing that surprised me most at first was how beautiful it is. I say this because I had no idea what it looked like. It was almost like I mentioned before the talk that Jeannie and I had given last night to some students, and I was telling them what I used to tell my children, that I was actually, for a time, I've been converted, in favor of arranged marriages for my kids. And I have some friends who have arranged marriages, Indian in most cases. And I remember talking to Cy, one of them, about this trip that he'd gone to. He was American, born around San Diego, but he'd gone to India to, like, I don't know, kick the tires and see how it was going to work out with the marriage. Well, it was kind of like that for me with coming to Catholic University. I'd never really been here. I'd given a couple of talks at the law school on that side of campus, but I'd taken a cab up to the building and gone in and then come out on that side. I'd given a talk at the John Paul II Cultural Center across Harewood Road, but otherwise, I didn't even apply for the job, and the interview process was very discreet. I was very happy at Boston College. I love being a lawyer. I love being a law school dean, and Archbishop Vigneron, who's the chairman, called me up and said, would I talk to the board? And because, well, it would have been impolite not to, so I said sure. But I kind of fell in love with the people on the search committee. But the interviews were downtown in a secret place behind the Willard Hotel. So really, almost my first time here was the day I took my job and came. And I was surprised at how many beautiful old buildings we have and how much, though not all, of the campus is so thoughtfully laid out architecturally. Like from the steps of the Basilica across to the library, that view across that quadrangle, or the view from here down to Gibbons and O'Connell Hall with Theological College in the background. It's really beautiful and sensibly laid out. The same is true of Curley and Caldwell. I love those buildings. So my first impression was, wow, this is really something.
Sal, you're up.
I'm Sal Biazzi. I'm a senior media studies major. Kind of on the same token as that question, what have you come to love the most about this university?
The students. That's really easy, and it isn't just because I or we have a personal relationship with them. I think that there really is a group or a cultural characteristic to the students here that is different from other institutions where I've been, Kentucky, Michigan, Notre Dame, Boston College. I love the students here. They are really exceptional and wonderful young men and women. I tell that to prospective students and their parents. I say on Odyssey Day, if you're in doubt about where you want to go to college and you're looking at other places, let me propose this test. Walk around and stop anybody. Pick somebody at random and ask them, are they happy here? And make up your decision on the basis of that. I have that kind of faith in our students.
Peter, go to your second best question. Peter had a question about the parking.
Hi, President Garvey. Thanks
Hi,
for coming.
Peter.
What would you say are your greatest successes? And on the same side of that, what would you say are your greatest challenges as president?
Well, I don't have any successes yet. I've only been here for 2 years, and I haven't actually done anything. I just talk. In fact, I think, like recently I've been engaged in a number of dean searches, and I've, on the list of 6 things on my desk, those are among them. And I was saying just yesterday when Jeannie and I were walking out for some kind of event, I started to say the most important part of my job, but there are many. I've got to raise money. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. But one of the most important things that I do is hire people at that level, because I don't really do any work. Other people do the work, and my job is to make sure we have the right people and to set a direction that they should be going in, and then to talk to people about it. And that goes for students as well as faculty and staff. But so that's something that happens gradually. One of the things, universities are very conservative institutions because people come to stay, and turnover is slow. So change at universities is slow. So in that sense, I haven't done anything. We have made some changes, a lot of them have been in the way we talk. I think that my emphasis on student life has begun to have an effect. People are hearing this, and I start to hear it back from people. We don't have much of a marketing budget here. We need money for a lot of things, and so I've had the good fortune to be sued over some things that we've done. And I said to Victor Nakas, who's our Associate Vice President for Public Affairs, we ought to put this guy on the payroll who keeps suing me because, you know, it's really great. We get in the newspaper and I'm winning, you know. There was a suit over the Muslim students, and I had the good fortune of having both Rush Limbaugh and the Washington Post on my side. How often does that happen?
Gina?
Hi, President
Hi,
Garvey.
Gina.
So tuition today is very expensive
Yes.
at the university, and I just was wondering in what ways you thought specifically the tuition at Catholic University was why it was worth it.
Well, that's a really great question. In some ways, the most important question for undergraduates coming to school. One of the things that we look at with our tuition is where we stand in relation to other private schools that are overlap schools for ours, that we compete with for students and faculty and so on. And within that group of private schools, we're actually, by a respectable amount, the best buy among those students. By comparison with, say, Loyola of Maryland, our tuition is surprisingly affordable. Notwithstanding, it's a huge sum of money. I say among private schools in this group because, of course, public schools are in an entirely different league from us. And if I were a parent, I think that the question I would be asking myself is, should my son or daughter go to Catholic University or the University of Virginia or the University of Maryland or something like that? And so in making that kind of decision, I would have to say, my wife and I have made that decision 5 times. I mentioned earlier why I thought Catholic education, Catholic higher education, was so important, because your son or daughter will go off to school and 4 years later graduate a very different person. And the kind of person you want your son or daughter to become is the most important thing in your life. I think the most important thing my wife and I have done is to raise our children, and one of the most important parts of that is giving them a Catholic education that was really worth it. So I think that's the question parents need to ask themselves.
John?
So this falls into the lighter side of things. I don't know what type of phone you use, or if you use like an iPad or something like that, but if you do, what's your favorite kind of like smartphone app?
I have an iPhone. I also have an iPad, and I have one of those MacBook Air computers that I travel with. I don't do apps very often. I do have a couple. I think the one I use most often is probably Navigon, which is a Garmin navigation application. I paid $75 for it. It's fabulous. I love it. I use it all the time. I gave a talk to the St. Thomas More Society in Richmond, Virginia, day before yesterday, and this wouldn't have happened 5, maybe 10 years ago, but I'd never been to Richmond. I had no idea what direction Richmond was in. I just plugged in the address and put in my thing and put some music on and set it on my thing, and this lady tells me, all right, turn left here, and I just go and do it. It changes your life.
Sarah?
Hi, President Garvey.
Hi, Sarah.
What's been your best or most enjoyable moment here at Catholic University?
Maybe the inaugural ball. It was so much fun. We didn't stay very long. I can't dance, so you may be thinking, so why is the ball such a big deal? But it was such a big deal for the students. I mean, it was eye-opening to me to learn that we don't have like balls very often. And I said, oh well, that's going to stop. We're going to start. We got to have some more dances around here. It's not. Anyway, it was just such a great thing to. This is kind of a personal reflection, and I just can't. I was kind of a nerd growing up, and I've been a school teacher all my life, So I've been. People know me in some small legal academic circles, but the idea of people knowing who I am when I don't know who they are is a new thing for me, and the idea that the students would actually be happy to see me and Jean and get a bang out of having us come to the inaugural ball is, I don't know, it's almost, I just can't get over it. I mean, I think, wow, me. Anyway, I just can't tell you what a thrill I get out of the opportunity to see students having a good time.
Patrick, you're up.
Hey, Patrick.
Senior later this month. I was thinking, what alumni relations plans do you and your office have?
We've made some changes. In fact, I mentioned how my job was about putting people in the right positions, and the first person I hired was Kira Lyons to run the Office of Alumni Affairs. We have a lot of growing to do in both alumni affairs and development, the part of the business we call advancement. We have had good publications, so print marketing reaches people and they get a nice magazine. But otherwise, we have not involved them or re-engaged them in our affairs. People graduate without expecting to make a contribution to the annual fund. You know, at other universities, at Dartmouth College, half of the alumni will contribute to the annual fund. Here, it's 8%. But that doesn't reflect the feeling that our alumni have about the university. I think they feel as though they got a great education and love their time here. But it reflects rather an insufficiently muscular or well-developed alumni program that keeps the alumni close to the university and engaged in our affairs. So we have to do a lot of that. There are a lot of different ways of slicing them. You know, you slice them horizontally by years and build a robust reunion program so that every 5 years, you know, this year the 2s and the 7s will come back for their reunions. Next year the 3s and the 8s, and you do that. You slice them geographically. All the people in Los Angeles, you know, regardless of what year, may get together. And this includes the people from the professional schools, you know, the law school who didn't go to college here. Anyway, we need to build that program up a lot.
We have about 15 minutes left, and I want to make sure that everybody gets a chance. So, Tomas, you're up.
Oh, you should probably stand up so you can see. I'm Tomas Pettigrew.
I congratulate you on your tie, Tomas.
Thanks. First expression from me. Especially after the long presidency of now Bishop O'Connell. Is it difficult? I'm sure he had his own dynamics. So is it difficult to be a lay person as the president of a Catholic university?
You know, there are a couple of things about my following Bishop O'Connell that I have noticed. One of them is what a great job he did with the university's own sense of itself as a Catholic institution. My job has been so immeasurably facilitated or made easier or more pleasant by the work that Bishop O'Connell did. I just can't say enough about the changes that he brought about here in his time. He was a really great president. So my first concern was, gosh, what a tough act this is to follow. I remember seeing him on TV before I came here and thinking, gosh, you know, I feel so awkward in front of cameras, and he's so natural and funny and interesting and good looking, and I just kind of hate to follow that. How's that going to? As for the lay part, you know, in some ways, I think it's been. I know that when the search committee began the process, they said to me, look, other things being equal, we'd rather have a priest. And I said, look, other things being equal, I'd rather you find a priest. So well, it's the Catholic University of America. I think that's really important. But as it turns out, this is a time in our history when there are some changes that we need here that are easier for me to make because I'm a layman. It's easier for me to say to people, look, I am a consumer of Catholic education. I have bought 92 years of Catholic education myself. My wife and I have put 5 kids through college. I know what I'm talking about. I know what the parents are thinking because I've thought it 5 times in a row. 20 years running, I've thought what they're thinking. So I know what I'm thinking, and that's one thing. There are other things. religious liberty has been a big concern that I have been engaged in, partly in defense of our university, partly because I'm a lawyer and that's an academic focus of mine. I have some books on the subject, and so I know about this. So I've been fighting this battle recently, to take one example, with Health and Human Services about their contraceptive mandate. I think that that's gone a lot better because I'm a married man with kids and not a bishop or priest who lives a life of celibacy. I think that my own observations about this come with a different kind of moral authority, just because people can't write me off as somebody who might be out of touch with the life of Catholics, or for that matter of students. I know exactly what I'm talking about there. And so I think people give me some credit in those discussions.
Chelsea, you're up.
Yes, Chelsea Sterling.
Hey, Chelsea.
I was wondering, what is the status currently of the birth control Obamacare controversy account?
We're in limbo at the moment. There were, or are, there were 5 possible solutions to this. One was that Health and Human Services would, after the interim final rule announced last fall, change its mind. I wrote a piece for the Washington Post way back in last September saying, look, this is a really bad idea and you shouldn't do this. So we were kind of waiting, and there was a lot of political pressure that built up there. Not enough in the end. On January 20th, HHS said, sorry, no deal, no changes. Then we thought, well, listen, I don't know who's talking to the president, but I know that Vice President Biden was on the same side of this as I was. I know that the president's former chief of staff was on the same side. They were all saying, don't go there. So we thought maybe the president would do something. He had a press conference on February 10th and proposed a solution that really doesn't do anything. It's a kind of political cover. But I thought maybe that's a way to do it. A third possible solution, we'll have to see how this happens, is the election in November. I think depending on how that goes, there may be a change. But that's pretty far off. A fourth possible solution is the case pending in the Supreme Court about the Affordable Care Act. One of the issues in the case, which got a day's worth of debate on Tuesday a couple weeks ago, was what's called the individual mandate. It's the financial proposition underlying Obamacare. And if the individual mandate is stricken, it may be that much of the rest of the law will fall with it, including the provision requiring these preventive services. That's a fourth possible solution. We'll know that by July. The fifth possible solution is a lawsuit, and we're considering our options about that.
President Garvey,
Hi.
University and a politics major, and following on from that, do you ever feel there's a conflict between between law, politics, and your Catholic values?
No, I don't. Yes, I do. This mandate from Health and Human Services is the law in the United States, and that's in open conflict with Catholic values generally, not just my own. But it presents a real difficulty. And I'm sad to see that, because in America, one of the many things that I love about our country is that we have been so, in general and as a rule, so open and accepting of different religious beliefs and practices. And this marks, I think, an important turn in public thought from that. So I'm apprehensive about what the future holds. I worry that we'll begin to look a little more like Western Europe in this regard, and I view that as a bad thing. As for conflicts between politics and my Catholic values, that's a little bit easier, because politics are what you make of them. And I'm not by nature a political creature, and I would say one of the intellectual mistakes I've seen in these debates over the HHS mandate, or more broadly over religious liberty, is the mistake of collapsing that into a simple political equation. This is not about Republicans versus Democrats. Much of the problems with religious freedom that we face are ones that were created by members of the Supreme Court nominated by Republican presidents. Justice Scalia, Chief Justice Rehnquist, and people like that are the ones who gave us the Smith decision in 1990, where the Supreme Court said, we're not doing religious freedom anymore. So there's a lot of improvement on both sides. You know, the Catholic Church is not a political party.
Elizabeth.
Hi, doctor.
Hi, Elizabeth. I'm not a doctor.
What advice would you give a student who is going into law school?
I'd give two pieces of advice. One is, the biggest difference between law school and undergraduate education is that in law school, you're expected to know and remember everything. So in law school, people would say, when we get ready for the exam and they'd, done the book and lessons and so on, so which, are we supposed to know this or that, about this case or about these notes? And I said, you're supposed to know everything. So if you want a rule of thumb, know everything, and then you'll do well. So that's one difference, or one word of advice. The second word of advice I'd give you is that if you take my first word of advice, it's a lot of work, and don't let it take over your life. There's a saying attributed to Justice Story that the law is a jealous mistress. And the meaning of it is, a mistress, remember, is somebody who wrecks homes and takes people's love away from the objects of their affection. The meaning of it is that the law can suck you up and, make it good morning and good night, something that you do all the time. So be sure you live your life.
James?
Hi, President Garvey.
Hi, James.
Williams, politics major. What's been the feedback regarding the switch to single-sex dorms, and how has it affected the campus?
I've gotten a lot of feedback about the single-sex dorms, and from three different audiences. I would say that the feedback that I get from parents has been overwhelmingly, maybe unanimously positive. The feedback from alumni has been almost one-sidedly positive. There have been a group, I would say they have tended mostly to be women alumni, maybe 5 to 15 years out in that age group. And I've had a lot of correspondence with, not many, maybe 10 people altogether. But I think it's been, to the extent that people have been, these alumni have been unhappy, I think that they have taken it as a sign of some other turn or some other direction that the university is taking. And so I'm at pains to reassure people, look, this is not about repealing Title IX or saying that women can't do jobs equal to men, or it's not that sort of thing at all. It's really about what I said it was. Among students, I've been surprised. I have talked to a lot of students about it. And I think that on the whole, I would say that the majority of students have approved of the idea. Now, this is partly because we're rolling it out 1 year at a time, so no freshmen come who didn't know it was the rule, and it doesn't affect anybody else. Next year we'll do the sophomore and the freshman class. Partly because of that. A number of students have said, look, I'm okay with the same-sex dorms, I might even like it. The RAs say, one of the great things about it is we find that the life in the residence halls has taken on a different character. Like you can have chick flick night and not worry about what are the guys going to be doing while we watch this, or you can, watch football games, have the people in the residence hall do that and not worry about what are the girls going to do. But a lot of people have said, look, I'm okay with that, or I'm even in favor of it, or I go along with it, but if you're going to do that, there got to be places where we can hang out together. I was saying earlier that we really need those kinds of social spaces for students to play, exercise, eat, hang out, drink beer, we really need a lot of that. So the complaints that I've taken most seriously have been those, which I think are justified.
Olivia?
Hi, President Garvey. I'm Olivia, a senior media studies major. And my question is, are there issues in this upcoming presidential election that you suggest students keep their eyes on or pay attention to?
Yeah, obviously the issue that's most important to everybody is the economy, and I'm disappointed in the way both parties have approached that. There's a lot of gamesmanship, you know, the Buffett rule by the Democrats. The Republicans had an equally silly tax cut proposal that they were floating today. I think that that's not useful. I think we're facing a really serious financial passage that we're going through, and it's going to require a lot of sacrifice, and I think we need to have a public conversation about how is the sacrifice going to be shared. I think that's the most important issue. For me, religious freedom is an important issue, and I hope we spend a lot of time in this campaign talking about it.
Hi, President Garvey. My name is Inga Gomez,
Hey,
and
Inga.
my question is, as a Hispanic student, I was wondering if there are any plans in your agenda to try to attract and retain Hispanic students to the Catholic University of America.
Yeah, there's a lot, actually. This is something that I talked with the Board of Trustees about before I came. I have said frequently, and I would say again, American Catholics need to understand that within the American Catholic Church, of all American Catholics under the age of 25, more than half are Hispanic or Latino. That's our age group. That's who this university serves. Pardon me. So unless we're improving the service that we give to that group, we're not reaching the American Catholic Church. So I think it's a sociological imperative for the university to begin paying more attention there. So among the things that we have done are these. I have been just talking out loud, and remember I said talking is one of the two parts of my job. A year ago, in the fall, I appointed a committee of people on the faculty and people on the staff to look into the matter of recruiting Hispanic and Latino students, and what could we do that we weren't doing, how could we improve our work in that regard. So they gave their recommendations to the Board of Trustees in June. I myself have been making more and more trips to Texas, Arizona, California, and encouraging our admissions people to spend more time recruiting out there, eventually building toward the point where we can afford to station someone out there. I went to visit, for example, had a good visit with Archbishop Gomez in Los Angeles. He introduced me to the head of Catholic schools in Los Angeles. So I visited with the head of Catholic schools, and I said, can I send out our Dean of Admissions to come and talk to the heads of the Catholic high schools in Los Angeles? So we've already done that. So there's a lot we have to do. It's a big change for us.
We're coming down to the end of our tape and our time at the same time. Mary, do you have a question?
My question was, is there anything that you would add or change about the core curriculum?
Yeah, there is. There are some things that I wouldn't change about the co-curriculum. I am very committed to the idea of the requirements we have in philosophy and theology. I think that kind of education is something that every graduate of a Catholic university ought to have. On the other hand, I feel as though we have too many required courses, and I don't just mean area requirements, I mean major requirements. I think that it makes a lot of difference, first of all, in students' ability to spend a little time their first year figuring out what they want to do without getting in a jam later on. Second, having fewer major requirements makes it easier for students to go abroad, and I think every student should go abroad. I think ideally every student should go abroad for a year to a place where they don't speak English, but it's almost impossible to do that because we have so many requirements. Third, most of our students who come in choosing one major migrate to another major, and having all of these requirements really jams you up then and forces you to spend more on tuition, going to summer school, or going more than 4 years to. So I think if we want to fit the curriculum to the realities of our students' lives, there are some things that we have to require, but I think there are some things we have to ease up on. I should say that bringing about curriculum reform is about the hardest change to accomplish at any university, because it's in the faculty's hands, and the one thing you can't do at a university is tell the faculty what they need to do. So you need to lead them.
TJ, last question.
Chocolate or vanilla?
Chocolate.
Okay. Can we have a show of hands of the seniors who are graduating? What's the takeaway that you want them to leave the university with? What's your 1-minute graduation address?
I hope you'll come back often, and I hope you'll tell people what a great place this was.
That simple.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, President Garvey.
Thank you all. Thank you for inviting me.
Terrific. Thank you very much.